As a note, this video has spoilers for Star Wars Darth Vader Issue 11. Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another video. And we are just over a week away from Twin Suns Tournament, which is the Star Wars Squadrons tournament that I'm running. It's going to be great. There's $20,000 worth of prizes. I've got a full production staff and casters. So make sure you include that in your calendar. But I do also have to say the tournament would not be possible without sponsors like Audible. You guys probably already know about Audible. I work closely with the brand a lot and they're helping me out with the tournament. I also listen to Audible pretty much every day. And as proof, here's my month of listening time. By using the link down in the description, you can get a free month trial of Audible, including an audiobook of your choice. The great thing about Audible is that when you get a new book, you get to keep it, regardless of whether you continue the service or not. With Audible, however, you have access to more than just audiobooks, but also podcasts, guided meditation programs, audio experiences, and more. Right now, I'm currently reading a few things. First of all, I've been going through all the classic Halo novels. I'm currently on Contact Harvest. I would recommend literally all of them, but I'm also right now listening to the new Thrawn Ascendancy book, Greater Good. The Star Wars audiobooks are always phenomenal with full music and sound effects. So again, check the link down in the description. Thank you to Audible for sponsoring not only lots of videos on EckhartsLadder, but also Twin Suns Tournament. Anyway, on with the content. So today we'll be talking about the recent Darth Vader comic book issue, Darth Vader 11, which released earlier this week. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Star Wars comics, at least modern Star Wars comics. Nothing against the individual stories at all, I just prefer the novel medium or television shows, video games, whatever else. That being said, pretty much all of the Darth Vader series runs have had some really interesting plot elements, and have done a pretty good job of continually diving into the lore, connecting things between the movies and everything else. And whether this is a good lore connection that we'll be discussing in today's video or not is up to you. The premise is pretty cool though. The recent arc of the 2020 Darth Vader series has been dealing with Vader tracking hints left by Palpatine and eventually now arriving on the planet of Exegol after countering several threats. And I mean, we know that Vader was at Exegol given the fact that his Wayfinder is present in episode 9, so yeah, this makes sense. And for those wondering, this takes place in the months before the Battle of Endor. So yeah, Palpatine's been preparing on Exegol for some time. I mean, obviously before his death, but in this issue, we get to see the full extent of that. I do also want to mention that Exegol itself looks a lot more interesting when it's not just totally blue. Like in this case, it looks just like a normal planet, so I'm not sure if the shift in tone, like the literal shift in color tone, is meant to represent the literal dark forces growing on Exegol in episode 9 with all the Sith cultists there and Palpatine initiating his master plan. Anyway, as he's traveling through the depths of Exegol, he follows a journey not too dissimilar to Kylo Ren's in episode 9. He starts off by traveling through the Sheev Palpatine Exegol science wing, where he sees what looks like newly formed Snokes growing in their vats, just where we saw them in episode 9. And that's really interesting. I'm going to talk more about that. I want to get through everything that he sees, but this is definitely worthy of a lot of discussion. Alongside those vats is a right hand, which most likely is the hand of Luke Skywalker. Again, we'll come back to that. Afterwards, in another set of vats, Vader encounters and defeats a series of probably grown or cloned warriors. He says that they're not Sith. Palpatine responds by saying, but they could be should you fall. Again, the man's preparing for everything, something that he also alluded to at the beginning of the comic. Vader defeats them, and then a crowd of what could be dark side acolytes, who he easily and remorselessly slaughters. Next, Vader sees the fleet of Zystans being prepared under the Exegol Citadel. The Zystan fleet is nowhere near completion. We aren't seeing the full numbers here, and the ships that do exist are nowhere near their complete state, but it's also stated to be a fleet of Star Destroyers 1,000 times more powerful than the galaxy has ever seen. And of course, Vader responds by saying, "Is this all you have?" Never impressed. The final secret of Exegol is a massive mountain of kyber crystal, which is being used to power the Zystan-class Star Destroyers. The kyber crystal is essentially being bled on a huge scale, sort of like you would with a lightsaber. They are effectively torturing the kyber crystal mountain. Kyber crystal itself is a living mineral, and so it's suffering and screaming through the Force. There eventually becomes a point where the screaming becomes too much, and even Vader, alongside Ochi of Bestoon, is overwhelmed by the incredible pain. The end of the comic is actually pretty good and sees Palpatine confronting Vader, basically saying that this pain is the only way that you can share my power, but is also something that you constantly turn against. This is the months before Vader's redemption, so when Palpatine asks him, "Are you going to join me and live this life?" Vader hesitantly says yes. Ochi, by the way, is now blinded, as we can see is the case in The Rise of Skywalker. Anyway, I will say that was actually a really good issue as a whole. Again, I'm not huge into Star Wars comics, but if they were all this quality, and I do understand that the various Darth Vader runs have generally had some very good arcs, I would definitely be more engaged. My problem, just for those who are wondering, is that between great arcs, there's also often a lot of filler. Anyway, let's talk about the big sort of reveals in this issue, including the fact that perhaps Luke and Luke's hand played some part of Snoke's creation. Luke's hand serving as the basis for a new evil is certainly nothing new in the Star Wars universe. In fact, the original Thrawn trilogy played with this idea. There was a clone of Luke, named Luke, created by Jorah Sabaoth from the DNA contained in Luke's cloned hand. The problem in Legends, and I'm gonna guess also in canon, is that cloning a Force-sensitive being is very, very difficult, and there's usually instability, whether that's madness, or as we've seen in canon and Dark Empire, physical degradation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is Snoke. I do really like the idea of Palpatine going out and finding Luke's severed hand. I think it actually makes a lot more sense than Vader being involved, and it reminded me of this piece of art that I had seen by Fred Palacio, which was created for one of ILM's art challenges. So is Snoke based on Luke's DNA? Is Snoke a Luke clone? Well, I don't think so. I mean, for one, Snoke physically looks nothing like Luke, but I also think generally that that's a little too specific. I think the point is, as we see with Grogu in The Mandalorian, that Force-sensitive people and their blood is very valuable and can be used in experiments. So is Luke actually creating Snoke? I don't think so. However, it may be Luke's midichlorians and his blood which is making the science experiments possible. Same as is the case with Grogu. Does Gideon want to make a Grogu clone? I don't think so. He probably wants to use Grogu's blood to help further certain experiments. On the topic of The Mandalorian, I was already pretty sure that it definitely wasn't Snoke that was being experimented on in that one scene from season 2. I feel even more secure now in that thought. I mean, Snoke obviously was being created on Exegol. We see here before Palpatine's death that the experiments were well underway. I think the Mandalorian thing could be related to Palpatine, but more likely it's just about getting someone like Moff Gideon more power. I also suspect that the second group of creatures from the vault are also only possible as experiments because of Luke's midichlorian blood or whatever it is that's used. And I think Palpatine even alludes to the fact that there may be other hidden creatures and creations on Exegol for whenever they're needed. But guys, that's my breakdown of Marvel Star Wars 11. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, I don't usually do comic breakdowns or anything, but this one was pretty interesting. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks again to Audible for sponsoring a bunch of my YouTube videos and the Twin Suns tournament. And again, guys, have a good one, be safe, and may the Force be with you.